Getting a new player into Dungeons & Dragons used to be no small feat. These days, it's pretty easy to get anyone to try Dungeons & Dragons. It's become so popular and so prevalent that most people are willing to at least give it a shot. However, back in the day, it took a little more convincing, as far less people even understood the sheer concept of it. And that's where this D&D December Tale comes from. This comes from a time when we tried to convince someone to try Dungeons & Dragons for the first time. This was back during the time of a D&D. So sometime in the 90s. I was a much younger kid at this point, and it was actually the new player was going to be a friend of my older brother's, and they were trying to convince him to try it out. So it was actually my older brother being the dungeon master, and myself being a more experienced player was going to be his party member, just to kind of help guide him through and kind of show how the game can be played by a player. And we did that thing that I feel like a lot of people do when they try to introduce someone to Dungeons & Dragons and they're like, man, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what I want to play. I don't even know what to make or what to do anything. And so we did the exact same thing that a lot of other people do. There's someone new, so we just say, just be a fighter, just hit stuff. And that's what we told them. I mean, most people understand that concept. They've seen knights in armor killing dragons or monsters or whatever in books or TV or cartoon or whatever it is. So, for the most part, anytime there's a new player, we say, be a fighter, grab your sword, and just hit things and kill things and protect the rest of us. Pretty basic concept. So that's what we did for this guy. And I think we just made his character sheet for him just to kind of speed things along. We explained all the different attributes and what they mean, obviously. And I think we ended up having him with, he had over 18 strength for sure. I think we just gave him 18. It was maybe 90 over 100 or something like that in AD&D rules. So he was like a beefy dude that could hit really, really hard. Being his party member, I just made another rogue. This wasn't Dieth at the time. This is before I made Dieth, actually. I just played some other rogue of some other nondescript name. Not entirely important. And then we had another person with us who I think was just playing a wizard. So we had pretty close to the standard party makeup. We're missing a cleric, but he got to see all the different things. Fighter attacks, rogue abilities, spell casting from the wizard. So we had all that there. But you ever make a character and find one trait or one thing you're really, really good at, and then you just get completely tunnel visioned on that one thing? That's what happened to this fighter very quickly. This plot, we ended up doing a one-shot adventure where the general plot line was we were to investigate why these undermountain dwarves kept coming to the surface and into the nearby forest. And no one was really sure why. So we were sent in after them. It was designed very much to be a sort of kick down the door, explore the dungeon, get treasures kind of thing, but a little bit of plot in there so we can at least explore some of the role-playing options. So these Undermountain dwarves kept coming to the surface, going to the forest, don't know why. We followed them back to their hideout and we started to explore. And it was your pretty typical normal fare, making hand-drawn maps on graph paper, taking down different enemies, barely surviving any amount of damage we took because I think we still played at level 1 or 2 or something like that. And then we finally got to the point where my abilities as a rogue could come into play, where they would be useful. We would I think the first thing we came across was a locked treasure chest. And right away I was like, it's locked, but I'm like, there's probably really cool stuff in there. Let me handle this. I'll show you how it's done, friend. So walked up, this was back in AD&D rules, so I had to grab my percentile die and roll to see if I could pick that lock. And nope, I rolled a 78 or something like that. Way too high of a roll, so I was not able to pick the lock. And I'm like, nope, it's locked. The lock itself is too complex. I can't pick it. Sorry guys, we can't get it. And the fighter, being the muscle guy that he was, is like, can we break it open or anything like that? Is it made of wood? And the dungeon master says, yes, it is. And the fighter like, oh, so can I try to smash it with my sword? And we said, you sure can, just make a strength roll. So he did, and he rolled abnormally high. High enough that right away his fighters walks up the chest and basically says, let me help. Immediately like caves in the entire top part of the chest, splinters flying off everywhere, just making a total mess. There were potions inside, he shattered 3 of them, but he got it open. And he felt very proud of himself and was very excited when he realized he could just smash wood and get the treasures that were inside. So while we broke most of it, we still got some things, and that was still excited. And that resonated with him very quickly, because suddenly he had an ability that he could do that clearly none of us could. We didn't have the strength for it. Continuing on through the dungeon, going down more corridors, sneaking through more passageways, and we come up to what would be a locked door. And of course, I'm the rogue, so I walk up and say, don't worry guys, I got it. I roll to pick open that locked door, and nope, 83 that time. Not gonna be picking open that door. And right away, the new player playing the fighter is just like, is it made of wood? Dungeon Master says, yes, it is made of wood. And he's like, I smash it. So right away, fighter just walks, sees me fail, and he's just like, step aside, son. Just for what's probably 20 minutes in game time of just hacking away at this door until it finally smashes down enough that it doesn't open. We just carved open a hole big enough that we could just bend over the boards and kind of like crawl our way through. Yeah, there are things waiting on the other side, and we had to fight them, and they set an ambush for us as they waited. Thankfully, he went in first, so it wasn't, as bad as it could have been. But yet again, so he smashes it open, we get in there, and it was, I can't remember which monster, some humanoid, so because they had crossbows and axes and stuff that they were trying to use against us. And it was in some sort of a rec hall kind of room in this dungeon. So there were like tables, there were chairs, there were cupboards, and as the Dungeon Master said that, player says, are those made of wood? They sure are. So he ran in and he made a point to not only kill monsters, but then smash the chairs and then like smash open the table. And it's like, oh, nice cupboard. Sure to be a shame if someone were to just breaking all their stuff. It was like a murder hobo, but for furniture. It was basically that. So anything you could smash, he would do that. It got to the point where anything we came across, he was just like, is it made of wood? Excitedly. It was the running gag of our brief session, and it ended up being just really, really funny as we went out. And as we finally got to the end of this dungeon, and we finally discovered why all these dwarves, who were typically always avoiding the sunlight, kept coming to the surface. And we find out it's because they have brokered some sort of deal with a nearby gnome clan. Basically providing them with different ores and metals and some of their stoneworking abilities to get them different machineries and tinkering things that the gnomes could provide. But the gnomes also needed lumber to make a lot of these things. So the dwarves agreed to also gather lumber resources for them so that they can get these different cool machines from the gnomes. Probably for nefarious reasons, I'm sure. Why else would us heroes be in there and murdering them? So as we get to the end and we find their headmaster, who was not a dwarf, but rather a gnome, creating these massive contraptions for the sake of, I don't know, killing innocents probably. It's hard to recall at this point. But he's basically making golems, mechanical golems. They had gears, they were shifting parts of it, their arms could move, they had like blade hands and saws and stuff. But more importantly, as this thing lumbered to life and started awkwardly taking steps towards us, recognizing us as their enemy, as commanded by his master, taking his blade arms into a menacing position, that fighter just looked at it and asked out loud, "Is it made of wood?" And the Dungeon Master just went, oh yeah, it's made of wood. And with reckless abandon, that fighter charged in, both hands on his sword, and just like, whee! Smash, 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 and just took this thing down pretty much by himself. I wasn't gonna fight a golem with what, my short sword? No, I snuck around and went after the gnome. I got that guy. Maybe the spellcaster took some pop shots off the golem too, but I wasn't gonna mess with that. So the fighter went off, having learned this entire time that he could smash wood, finding a boss at the end where it was made of wood, and he could continue to smash that. And that's how we convinced someone that he should keep playing Dungeons and Dragons.